Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. And welcome in. Appreciate you all so much for joining me. If anyone's joining me, I don't know, man. A little short notice show here, guys. I just wanted to pop on because it is Sunday. Usually we do a Victory Monday, but I felt like doing a Victory Sunday because I felt like, well, this one warranted it. A victory Sunday instead of a Victory Monday. I just rewatched the game and man, wow, was that fun. So yesterday I was in the stands, 5 rows from the top of the stadium. It's obviously a much different watch when you're seeing the game from there versus watching it on TV with all the replays and having the capacity to rewind, which, man, does it take me a long time to watch a game anymore. When it's a Buckeye game, for sure. When it's a big game, especially, it takes me so long just rewinding because I'm trying to watch, we have so many questions about so many of these guys, the first game of the year. I'm trying to key in on everybody, every single play to get an accurate gauge on who's doing what, who's playing great. Wow. Some unbelievable performances yesterday from those Buckeyes. And I just wanted to come talk to you guys a little bit about my experience yesterday, get some of yours, kind of fully interact and pull you guys up here. I know some of you guys have a lot to say from the game. A lot of you guys went. Curious to see if you guys had a similar time that I did, which was just an unbelievable time. And I've got a couple of clips that I shot with my buddy. So I had a dude with me yesterday. He's a fan of the show. He's a Chuckeye, and he is from Georgia. Well, he's from Columbus, but he lives in Georgia now. He came up to Columbus. He's got season tickets. I sat next to him. Me and my wife did. And we were kind of cruising around. We shot some stuff. We shot some things from the game, and we're going to put a little thing together, just kind of a recap of our experience. I'm working on that, but always so much fun to be in attendance for a big game. And it's almost one of those things where, like, I just need to be there. I feel like to rectify the fact that I wasn't there in 2005. And I got a lot of thoughts about the actual game. A ton of good, a little bit not so good. But let's start with the big picture. And that is the biggest game of the regular season, out of conference matchups anyway. Ohio State gets redemption against Texas, and everybody that was picking Texas is the media darling this year. I don't know what it is. I think it's partially Texas. It's partially Arch Manning, Texas platform. And it's also some of the, people wanting to get out ahead and like get buy-in first before anybody else. But they have jumped on this program so fast and so much and pumped them up so much. And I was just saying in my show yesterday, in the last calendar year, this is a program that, while Sark has done a great job building it, they are clearly a program that's going to compete for national championships every year now. Their last 4 matchups against Georgia and Ohio State, in less than a calendar year, they've lost all 4. So they've yet to kick down the door. And these folks thought that they were going to walk into Columbus and kick down the door against Ohio State because they got Arch Manning. And that's not how I saw this game going. Of course, I saw this game going a lot different than it actually went. We listened to Ryan Day after the game, and he talked about the lack of aggression in the game plan. And some people weren't happy about that. So I was on the BuckeyeHuddle.com board, and this is where, we get together like we do here and just talk football, talk the game. And there's a ton of people with a ton of opinions, and most of them are, they're as tuned in as everybody watching here. These are people who pay $15 to be on a board and talk Buckeye football with people who know what they're talking about. There was a lot of people that were irritated with the conservative game plan. And generally, I don't like a conservative game plan. I thought this would be a little more aggressive. I thought, because it seems so obvious, right? It seems so obvious that it would be conservative from both coaches that we would see one get a little more aggressive and the other one follows suit. And that's not what we saw. We saw a really conservative Buckeye game plan. after they got ahead. Now, generally, I hate this. I don't like to try to maintain that lead and pound the rock and run the clock when you're not getting anywhere with the run game. But under these circumstances, with a rookie, right, play caller, Brian Hartline, his very first game, and Julian Sayin making his first ever start with his confidence building, right? He was playing really good, hitting a lot of passes, a lot of short passes. They were keeping him clean. You risk a ton if you go the other way and you start getting aggressive. Ryan Day said he thought that, they could have put more on his plate. Matter of fact, I think I got the clip right here. Let's listen to what Ryan Day said about that game plan.
But I thought I was impressed with his poise. He had a good look in his eye, and what he was saying and what he was seeing was exactly what was going on. That's a great sign. I remember CJ's first start. I remember Justin's first start. And when I mean first start, like, in big games, Dwayne, Kyle, Will was different because he'd played a lot of football. But when you have that first start and you're out there, there are so many things to take into consideration. When you're the quarterback at Ohio State and you're playing number one Texas against one of the top defenses in the country, which we have a tremendous amount of respect for, like, the one thing we didn't want to do and I didn't want to do was put him in a bad spot. It's just not fair to him. Now, coming out of it, quite honestly, I think he probably could have handled it, but we weren't going to do that because we know it's a long season, and that was the decision that was made. And so we'll go from here.
The thing is, right, like, I do Monday morning quarterback. If you're playing a game like Michigan State, for instance, last year, we can go back to last year against Michigan State. It's a game against a program that you're a 4-touchdown favorite. And, there's some things that aren't clicking good and you win the game. Okay. But there's still some things that you're kind of looking and saying, all right, how does that project forward? How does that project when you meet up against a big time opponent? Right. Well, it's difficult to do that and justify doing that against a program that is number one in the country. All you got to do is win. You don't need to project forward. You just beat the number one team. And that's the message I would have to anybody who's concerned about the conservative game plan. They did exactly what they needed to do to win the game, and that's all they needed to do. That was number one. And, there were some maybe performances that didn't meet up to expectations. But remember, that's a program with guys that are just as good as Ohio State's guys. And, a lot of those guys Ohio State wanted didn't get. And that's, it's a loaded program with a ton of talent. Buckeyes beat them. They straight up beat them. They beat them up. Not in the stats, interestingly enough. The stats, I love this comment from Cookie Monster. Arch was the AI version of a Manning. I feel bad for the kid. I really do. He's put in this position and amped up. Anybody, like, guys, like, just think about this, what they were expecting this kid to do. They were expecting him to come into Ohio Stadium in the biggest game of the year, and with his first real start, his first road start, outplay Ohio State. And he was all over the place. Like, it's so not surprising that he performed like that. Like, it's so not surprising at all. I'm more surprised that so many people thought that's what he was going to do. It just seems baffling to me that they throw all this stuff on him. The kid's got a great future. I think he's going to be really good. I think when he was running the ball, he looked really good. And I do think that had they run him more earlier in the game, it might have been a different story. They chose not to. But yeah, man, he was clearly out of sorts. He was dirting balls. He was missing guys. I mean, you guys all saw it, right? It was just, it felt like there were a couple times the Bucs got bailed out just because he was so inaccurate. But the amount of pressure this guy got, and now he's just getting absolutely cooked. And it, all in good fun. But some people are being really nasty about it. And I get it. I get it, because it's anger against the media and what they tried to make him out to be. And he still may be that. But they thought that he was going to come in and just work Ohio State. It was like 8 out of 10 pundits I was watching the day before the game that were all picking Texas to win the game. And, they could have won the game, but they were talking about it as though it was, a guaranteed thing. Texas was just, going to be dominant this year. Ohio State had all these guys that they were replacing. And boy, did they ever. When we look at that defense, guys, that back seven, just blazing fast all over the place, making plays. it was a sight to behold, and they blanket coverage everywhere. When we look at guys like Jermaine Matthews and IGB, last year, IGB was a hot button player, right? Everybody so irritated with all the penalties that forgot at times, oh, wait, that's a really top-notch corner in college football, as well as a guy who gets a lot of penalties. If he can nix the penalties, he's just now a top-notch corner. And not just that, but a physical one. Guy had 10 tackles yesterday. He was everywhere. He plays with fire. Jermaine Matthews obviously plays with a ton of fire. Devin Sanchez got in. Devin got in game 1 against Texas. How exciting was that to see? And he looked so smooth out there, consistently getting towards the ball. I got all the PFF numbers and stuff, and we can go over a couple of those. But what I was more looking for was snap counts, and I got some information on that. But the Buckeyes were the better coach team. They were the better coach team yesterday, and I guess that's where I want to start. And I've been saying this since the national championship, that I think Ryan Day and the operation that he runs at Ohio State and the culture at Ohio State, being able to be as good as Ohio State is and maintain that culture is something that's so difficult that even Kirby Smart can't do it at Georgia. You know, it's not a terrible culture at Georgia, but they have their issues. Ohio State has 0 issues. And when we look at Ryan Day's last 10 games, playing Indiana, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas again now, you can throw in a Purdue and a Northwestern win in there as well. That's 9 out of 10 victories in the last 10 games, and 2 of them against a number 1 team, 7 of them against a top 10 team. That's just unbelievable. 3 against the SEC. I don't know. We'd have to go back and really analyze this, but I can't imagine anybody's ever done something like that before in a 10-game stretch, because they've not really had the opportunity. You got to have the opportunity, and Day had the opportunity with the playoff. But in addition to that playoff, he had the Indiana and the Penn State win going into that. So that was 2 top 10 wins there. And now he gets the opportunity in game number 1 this year to go against number 1. Who's done this before? Nobody. But they still don't talk about him with the respect I feel he deserves. That's just my opinion. It doesn't matter. We know what we got, man. I'm telling you what, when we go back to the hiring of Matt Patricia, when we go back to this guy going outside the box after he loses Jim Knowles and bringing in Matt Patricia, and the amount of pushback that there was about that hire, right? I don't know how you felt, but I know that if you're watching me, and you have for a while, half of you, right? It was about 50% were very bothered by that hire. And my thought at the time was, because a lot of people were irritated about the way things went in Detroit, not specifically that they lost and they weren't good, but more the reaction from a lot of the players. A lot of the players talked bad about him after he left. And it seemed to me at the time that he was much like a lot of these guys we've seen leave Bill Belichick's system, like McDaniels, like Mangini, like Charlie Weiss, who go in and as a first-time head coach somewhere, they're emulating Bill Belichick and they act like Bill Belichick. Well, Bill can get away with that. He's a big-time Super Bowl winner. Nobody wants to hear that from a first-time head coach, the condescending jerk kind of guy that's the know-it-all, right? And they all failed. They all failed. Every single one of them that acted like that. And it sounds like that's how Patricia failed at Detroit. Well, he had a reputation as quite a jerk. And a lot of people did not like this hire because of that. How's that going to affect the culture at Ohio State? He hasn't been in college football for 20 years. He was a terrible head coach. And my thought at the time was, we're talking about Ryan Day, a guy who doesn't risk his culture for anything. It's number 1, right? It's the number 1 priority. He doesn't risk it when it comes to money for players. He doesn't risk it for anything. He'd rather pass on 5-star talent than take a potential risk. And we've talked about this plenty, take a potential risk of upsetting the locker room. Do we really think he's going to bring in some raging jerk to coach his defense? Let's think about that honestly. And when you know, Matt Patricia comes in and the guy's like the nicest guy ever. Everybody loves him. He's running around practice hugging people, right? Okay, there it is. Now, that's the culture part. with Matt Patricia. Let's talk about the schematics. This dude ran circles around media darling Steve Sarkisian, a guy that most people say, as a head coach anyway, is the best play caller in the game. And Patricia had him reeling all game. Reeling. This dude is a weapon now. He is an absolute weapon. And when we talk about weaponizing, he totally weaponized Arvell Reese. And that was kind of the thought I had going into this, right? A lot of people were saying, what's he going to do now with CJ Hicks? He can do this and that with him. No. Look at Arvell. That's the guy that's getting weaponized. And I want to show you the chart that my man Tony Gerdeman at Buckeye Huddle put together or stole from somebody. I don't know, but he posted it. This is where Arvell Reese lined up in the first and second quarter. You see the number 8s. All right, he's all over. He's on the left edge. He's on the right edge. He's playing middle. He's playing outside. Here's the first quarter. Look at that. This is where Arvell Reese lined. This is insane. So Arvell Reese is the linebacker version of Caleb Downs now. You put him everywhere and anywhere, and you just let him go because he's so sensational, and boy, was he sensational. There's no other way to describe it. He's the best linebacker in all of football. He was the best. Look, Ant Hill was on the field yesterday. Ant Hill, supposedly a top 10 player in college football, the best linebacker, the front runner for the Butkus Award winner. He made a couple of plays. Nothing like Arvell Reese. Arvell was everywhere, and it was just so smooth. It was so smooth. He was hitting dudes hard. He was everywhere. I love it. I think he's fantastic. I've been clamoring for him for a year. He finally gets his moment, and boy, did he shine. But he is the weapon. He's Weapon X. Arvell Reese, the A8, the man. One of the biggest concerns for me was Arch running the ball. I thought that they might have Caleb maybe kind of playing in a spy role. Well, the first, third, and 11, instead, Patricia puts Bo Atkinson out here on the left edge, Kenyatta on the right edge, and then he puts Caden Curry at nose guard, and then he has Arvell playing just off the line. Ball gets snapped. It's a 3-man rush. Arvell kind of drops back, and he's spying Manning. That's how fast he is. You're using him to spy that guy. That's awesome, right? But it was a perfect defense. The secondary locked him down. He couldn't do anything. And that was just one of the many unique, interesting looks that Patricia did throughout the day. Obviously, he blitzed plenty from everywhere, a lot of different guys. And it was so different the way he disguised his coverages. Like he was so much, there was so much more going on than we saw in Noel's defense. And my point here is not only is he great, but Ryan Day went outside the box with this hire, a hire that many people criticized. And it certainly looks right against the best team in the country. Like he's nailed it again. He nailed it again. He nailed the Jim Knowles hire. He might have upgraded when it's all said and done. Who knows? But he absolutely nailed it. This dude is the real deal. And this is a schematic whiz. It's a schematic whiz. We're not talking about the NFL here. He's going against guys in the NFL. There is equal talent against every team you play. Every team you play is necessary. I mean, for the most part, there's not the gaps that you have in college. So you're not forced in college to consistently work on scheme because 8 of your 12 games you play in a year, or 13 or 14 games, you're a mismatch against your opponent. In the NFL, you are consistently forced to elevate your game schematically to try to beat your opponent. He spent 20 years doing that, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And he was fantastic. Julian saying at this point in his career is better than Arch Manning. I challenge anybody to say any differently. Arch had better stats. Julian had ice in his veins, man. Ice in his veins. That release really comes in handy when you're working with against pass rushers like Colin Simmons and Trey Moore. Those guys are obviously the best in the business. That's the best tandem in the country. And they didn't really get close, man. They didn't really get close. Colin Simmons talking jazz this week, put Julian Sayins, when he was announced the quarterback, put it up on his Instagram as if to say, coming to get you. Now, he didn't say that, but we got the message. We got the implied message, and it didn't even feel like Colin Simmons was on the field. That release, the quick reads, he was even going through his progressions, and the wide receivers, that Texas secondary, really good as well. really good. The wide receivers didn't do a great job getting open. Jeremiah obviously had a couple of drops, super uncharacteristic, changed his gloves. I don't know what that was about. He even showed some frustration on the field when a ball didn't go his way. They panned the camera to him. I saw on the replay, and he was really angry. It's the first time I've seen that out of him. A little bit of a frustrating game for JJ, it seemed. Carnell came through big. And personally, I love him getting that moment in a big-time moment. I think that only stands to bolster his confidence and his production throughout the rest of the season. But when we look at targets, JJ with 10 targets, the rest of the team had 10 combined. Now, personally, I love that. That's, in my opinion, the best player in college football. Get him the ball as much as possible. However you got to do it, do it. And I love that kind of game plan. If that's what we have to look forward to with Brian Hartline moving forward, I'm all for it. When we look at snaps, Jeremiah 57, Carnell had 46. Carnell, again, was the highest rated wide receiver per PFF. And then as far as the pass catchers go, you had Will Kazmarek on the field for 48 snaps. Bennett Christian was the second tight end with 28. Max Clare with 23. So Max Clare with the fewest of the big three tight ends. Jelani Thurman had 7. So it was interesting. Will Kaz had so many more snaps than everybody else. And I thought we'd see a little bit more of Max Clare, but it seems like it was more either, obviously Max Clare or Brandon Innes. Brandon had about 23 too. Will Kazmarek did a fantastic job blocking. He was great. Now, Keenan Bailey has said that he's the best blocking tight end in the country. He was really, really good yesterday. And on the touchdown pass to Carnell Tate, Kazmarek kind of got beat immediately by Colin Simmons. This is a tight end on the best pass rusher in college football. He gets beat immediately. And instead of trying to recover and reach for him, he does a 360, flips around, knowing that he's not going to beat him going left. So he flips around, does a 360, gives up ground to get in front of him again. And he gets in front of him and gives Julian just enough time to get that ball off to Carnell Tate. If that's any other tight end in there, that play's blown up, no touchdown. So a huge shout out to our guy Kaz. That was great. Stars of the game, I've got plenty, but let me start with Jalen McClain. I don't know if something was wrong with Malik Hartford. The injury report was clear. There was nobody on the injury report, but this was obviously a battle that we came into spring thinking McClain had the upper hand because we ended last year with McClain ahead. And then we go into spring and it appears that no, it's Hartford ahead. Okay, well, he must have had a great winter. We see his physique. He clearly has. He's put on a lot of weight, and maybe it's Hartford. And these guys battle it out through spring. They battle it out through fall, and we're told it doesn't really matter who starts. We got a lot of different packages. We're going to see both of them a ton. Hartford didn't play a single snap yesterday, which makes me think, all right, maybe he was a little dinged up. I don't know. But McClain was everywhere. Jalen McClain, the 55th ranked safety out of the class of 2024, a guy that was just felt like, okay, he's kind of a throw-in. People were not happy with him. Jalen McClain is going to be an NFL early round draft pick. He's everywhere. He's got great instincts. He's a great tackler. He looks like Caleb Downs light at this point in his career. And when Caleb leaves, I think it's Jalen McClain who rolls up into that kind of role. And I think he's capable of a lot of the things. Obviously, Caleb's on a different level than everybody, but I think he's capable of doing a lot. The kid is next level. He's next level. And when he leaves Ohio State, I think he's going to be the next Chris Olave was a 3-star. You know what I'm saying? Like when I talk about guys and I talk about recruiting and I talk about that a lot, there's always that refrain everybody will bring in. Hey, Chris Olave was a 3-star. I think that there will be a point where people are saying Jalen McClain was a 3-star because I think he's a different type of dude. He's a different caliber of player, and he certainly gets my standout player of the game yesterday just based on expectation and how he performed. I don't think anybody was expecting Jalen McClain to be such a standout player against the number 1 team in the country. Obviously, Arvell was tremendous. We've talked about him plenty. He got a ton of shine. Davis Igbinosun is so excellent now. He had 10 tackles. He lays the wood. He plays with so much energy. Jermaine Matthews, I want to tell you this story. If you weren't at the game, you didn't see this because it wasn't on the film. The goal line stand, which, man, I could watch that 10 times over. This team is getting so good at that. Like, that is like, honestly, what's more exciting than a fourth down goal line stand? I don't know that there's a more exciting thing to watch your team do than a goal line stand in that kind of situation. Matthews wasn't involved in the play. He was off to the side, looking for somebody peeling out. And he didn't get a hit on anybody, so he jumps up twice, and then he sprinted all the way to the 50-yard line, like celebrating. And everybody who was at the game saw it. It was just the energy this guy plays with is something that just it brings everybody up. IGB similar, man. These guys are so amped up in that secondary. And then you got Cerebral Caleb leading the way. That's the best secondary in college football. It is. And it appears, I don't think Aaron Scott played at all. So it appears, we've talked, over, is it going to be Devin or Aaron Scott, Dylan and I. Dylan, obviously a big fan of both, but he thinks look out for Aaron Scott. Looks like Devin will be getting plenty of playing time this year. And we talk about the freshman, Nate Roberts, also on a 4th and goal. Nate Roberts came in as the fullback. It did his job. That was the only snap he had. Didn't have one at tight end. So tight end Nate Roberts comes in as a fullback, as a fullback. Now, what were the questions we had coming into the season as we project forward here? The questions were, we like the way everything looks. Did anything underperform to you? Did you feel like there was an underperforming unit on the team? The secondary obviously overperformed. I think the linebackers absolutely exceeded expectations. I think that Julian Sayin exceeded expectations. I think that the offensive line, while they weren't great in run blocking, look, if you get your guy and he's clean all game against that kind of pass rush, that's an A+. It's an A+. That's the best pass rush in the country. And that interior is really good. And they kept Julian clean all day. A+. I don't care that they couldn't get a whole lot of yards on the day. You kept him clean, and had the game plan been a little more aggressive, he could have picked him apart, really. So I'm going to give him an A. The running backs, CJ Donaldson ran really hard as he could. Again, those are really good players on the other side of the ball. And no, he didn't average a lot of yards per carry. James Peoples was just barely over 2. Again, going back to the Buckeye Huddle board, a lot of people concerned about James Peoples. My opinion on James Peoples has not changed before the game or after the game. I think James Peoples has the ability to be a high-level Ohio State starting running back. I don't agree with the comparisons to JK. I think JK always had the ability to potentially be a great Ohio State running back. I don't think Peoples is that, but I think he can be high quality, and I don't feel any different after yesterday. I do feel, on the other hand, that Bo Jackson does have the ability to be a great Ohio State running back, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more, as I've been saying all offseason, of Bo worked in here. But CJ Donaldson seemed like the clear number 1 for Texas. That doesn't mean that's how it'll stay. He's obviously a bigger body, and it seemed like a perfect time to have that bigger back get the bulk of the carries, as he did get twice as many carries as James Peoples did. Also seemed to run a little bit better. So everything worked out there. But no, it's not time to just jump off of James Peoples because he had 2 yards of carry against one of the best fronts in the country, maybe the best front in the country. And I'll also say I underestimated them. I did underestimate that front that they had. There was a lot of me that thought, okay, you went out and got these 5 dudes in the transfer portal. You're all excited about these 5 dudes in the transfer portal. A lot of times people just say, hey, they went out and got 5 dudes in the transfer portal, so the problem's fixed. All right, how good were those guys, right? And I looked back. Now, a lot of big bodies. One of them's Hero. Hero wasn't great at Ohio State. Hero played really good. When we look at the offensive line and we look at the snap count, all the starters played the entire game, which, by the way, was only 59 offensive plays for the Buckeyes. Not a lot of plays. And when we look at, there's only one starter that didn't play all the plays in the game. That was Tegra at right guard. And 15 snaps from Tegra went to Ethan Onyanwa. So Ethan played 15 snaps at right guard. and it wasn't good. Ethan didn't play good yesterday at right guard. Of course, not his natural position. Natural position is a tackle, but he came in as a tackle, and all of a sudden, Austin Sarveld becomes Mr. Everything. Mr. Everything, and absolutely shocked the Texas folks. They said one of their guys on one of their websites on Texas said that 44-year-old looking dude is beating Colin Simmons. Of course, he was talking about Austin Sarveld, and he did. He made him inconsequential. Phil Daniels on the other side, nobody expected him to rise like he did. Phil was really good yesterday. So Ethan relegated to the sixth man, coming in and rotating. And he did that yesterday at guard with Tegra. Had a rough day, struggled. So what's that look like moving forward? Who knows? But game number one didn't go so good. Obviously, if they didn't think he was ready, they wouldn't put him in. It wasn't necessary to put him in. So they thought he was ready, but didn't go so great. Tegra wasn't great either. They graded out the two lowest. And that's, right guard, kind of the weak spot of the offensive line at this point. We'll see how it goes moving forward. Obviously, what you've got here in the schedule is a beautiful thing. And I've always loved the way this schedule sets up, because if you were able to sneak one early, right? If you were able to get this big victory right off the rip against Texas, you've now got a month. We got a month, guys. 4 weeks until you play a good opponent, and that's in Seattle when you go to Washington. As next week, you've got Grambling. The following week, Ohio University. That'll be a night game at the Shoe. Then you've got a bye week. Then after that bye week, you go out to Washington. And having that bye week before going out to Washington, which is Ohio State's only second trip out there in the regular season to the West Coast to play a game. They probably learned some things against Oregon going out for that West Coast trip. They'll probably tweak a few things. And obviously a tremendous environment, a great place to play. If I was going to pick a road game to go to this year that wasn't a postseason game, that would be my choice, hands down, obviously. But I think it's a little far for me, man. It's a little far for me. Yeah, I get petered out going down to Columbus for a game day, right? I was tuckered out last night. I'm getting older, you know what I mean? Matter of fact, I wanted to pull this up. So I got a comment. One of our buddies the other day says that he wanted to let us all know that he's having his first child. He's having a son. His wife's getting induced September 2nd, and he's not as focused on the game as usual because he's stressed out about that. So shout out to our guy having his baby induced on September 2nd. Also, the Juxter's birthday, September the 2nd. So really fun to see that comment. Anyway, 46, I think that's like this week, September 2nd. And yeah, man, it's a chore for me to get around anymore for a game. I don't know. I'm in pretty decent shape. It just wears me out mentally. I was tuckered. But let's talk about that. A little more football first before I get into that. I did want to talk about the defensive line because we've talked about every other group now. The defensive line, this was our biggest question mark outside of Julian saying, how would the two deep on the interior play? How would the defensive line play? And it certainly looked like the biggest contest of the year, the best opponent to start off. Everything they were saying about Will Smith was true. Will Smith played very good. Not good, very good. And that's really, really exciting. And I'll own that. I didn't see that coming. 16 snaps for Will Smith, played really good. Ty Malone had 14 snaps, played so-so. Freshman Jarquez Carter with 3 snaps. And then you had Curry with 59 snaps, Edric and Caden McDonald. So this was a big deal. 67 total snaps. How many were those two bigs who both played great? How many were those two bigs going to play? They played 38 and 39 snaps, respectively. Kenyatta Jackson with 34 snaps before he got concussed. And Bo Atkinson played 35 snaps. And it looked like early on at defensive end, we had Kenyatta and Curry and Bo, kind of the three of them attacking together, kind of splitting snaps. Now, we didn't see any of Logan George. CJ Hicks played 19 snaps, and he played pretty doggone good. Played pretty good. The 12th rated defensive player per PFF. He didn't miss many assignments. He didn't look bad. He had 3 tackles. Obviously, he had the play at the end of the game where, I mean, they totally whiffed on him, let's be honest, but he made the play, and that's what counts. So a positive thing in the positive direction for CJ Hicks. He had one earlier on the goal line. It was like second down on the goal line, and they stunted him from defensive end inside the middle, and he made that tackle well. Matter of fact, it was him that concussed Kenyatta Jackson. Kenyatta Jackson and CJ Hicks's head when he made that tackle hit, and Kenyatta fell in a funny way that looked really concerning from my vantage point at the stadium. It looked like he wasn't moving at all. So that was a real scare. But I had to text my buddy Dan, who said, no, it was a concussion, because it looked like something serious. Ryan Day talked about it. Kenyatta's fine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays next week. But if they want to hold him out, whatever. It doesn't matter. Of fact, probably a good idea just to hold him out, though I'm sure he doesn't want that, right? He wants to rack up some stats. This is his year. This is his money year. Unless he wants to come back next year, which would also be fantastic. Remember, Kenyatta Jackson somehow has another year of eligibility. Caden Curry does not. But wouldn't it be cool if we could get them both back? But the atmosphere yesterday, guys, at the stadium was something to behold. Now, remember, the last game we played at Ohio Stadium was against Tennessee. And that one will forever be the oddest game in Ohio Stadium history, because it was following the 3-week period after the biggest upset in the history of the game, and everybody being so angry. That 3-week period was just so weird. And then you get in to a playoff game, and there's feminine orange all over the place. They were rude. They were nasty. They were rude to the football team walking in the stadium, flipping them off and such. And it was, if you were there at the game, it was almost like a challenge. Like these were people running up in your place trying to embarrass you. And the atmosphere for that game being at night was just a different level. The craziest game I've ever been to, and beating them like you did, it was just amazing. Then you roll into this game, which is a totally different environment. It's Big Noon. It's and I'll be honest, Big Noon, the fact that it was at noon took away a little bit. It did. I remember thinking in the second quarter, like, if this was a night game, this would just be next level. And it was next level, but it would have been even that much more so. But the crowd totally embraced the moment, and nobody sat the entire game except for, during timeouts or whatever. Everybody stood right back up. So on their feet, it was so loud that that final possession was ridiculous loud. I mean, my wife was telling the story to my son. She was like, I was yelling as loud as I could, and I couldn't even hear myself yell. It was really cute. She's adorable. But it was so great, man. The crowd was star of the show. A lot of those Texas fans were saying loudest stadium I've ever been to. And that's what you wanted. By the way, the Texas fans, shout out to them. I didn't run across a rude, nasty one. They obviously weren't there in the numbers that the Tennessee fans were, so that can embolden you to be a bit more of a jerk. But the Texas fans were all pretty classy. And again, a fan base I've always liked interacting with. They've always seemed to be pretty cool, knowledgeable, and I liked them. I had a good time with the Texas fans. So shout out to them. But the Buckeye faithful showed out. I heard, and then I looked myself in the game here. The audio feed for the audio there doesn't match. It doesn't match how loud it is on the Fox broadcast. And I don't know if that is like they tone that down a little bit so you can hear their broadcasters or something, but it is annoying. It doesn't match. It was so much louder at certain moments, and I remember those moments, and then I'm watching it on Fox. It's not nearly as loud. And that sucked. That really sucked, because I want everybody to hear that. Let's get to a couple of your comments. Ed Rogers says, if you're going to punt all day long, why not go deep a few times? It would open up the run. Now, this is on some of the not so good, right? So there is a few not so good, and that's one of them. McGuire and McClarty were in this punting battle. Now, McClarty is the 6'7" kid from Australia. They're both from Australia, but the 6'7" one who has a difficult time with accuracy. A lot of times it'll go off the side of his foot and be pretty lousy. McGuire is Mr. Consistent, but he can't kick it very far. Well, McGuire wasn't all too consistent yesterday, so he kind of laid an egg. If you're going to be Mr. Consistent, you can't be the one looking like McClarty with it going off the side of your foot. And when you are playing a defensive game like that, you have got to have good punts. How about the punt that Texas punter had that stopped on a dime at the 2-yard line? That's a weapon in a game like that. And that was not good enough for McGuire. Wouldn't be surprised if that competition opens back up, to your point, Ed. Thanks for the comment. Mika did not like the commercials. Not a fan of the commercials. The Arch commercials, I fast-forwarded. I didn't see them. Ken Taco Hut says Arch Manning was crowned the national champion. Heisman and first overall pick before August 30th. A lot of people backtracking, Ken Taco Hunt. A lot of people. Chris couldn't watch the game. He got nauseated before the game and had to listen on the radio. You were so nervous. You were so nervous you got yourself nauseated. It's understandable, man. I get it. We're all a little different when it comes to things we really care about. And that's what we are here. We're people that really care, Ed says, Thomas Castellanos from FSU is a great runner. Arch is okay. Castellanos is a great runner. And how about that? Kalen DeBoer he's been a great coach all his career. A lot of people concerned about him in Alabama. Would he come down and, maybe wouldn't fit in? I'm going to tell you, listening to him after the I listened to his press conference, and this just I didn't sense the urgency, the disappointment. It was there a little bit, but like, I want to see you flipping out at that point. Like, dude, you just lost the opener to a team that won 2 games last year. You're supposed to be one of the most talented programs in the country. Like, you should roll the ball out and beat that Florida State team the way they performed last year. Getting beat like they did was humiliating. And he just doesn't seem to have it. He doesn't seem to have it. You don't want to overreact after one game, but how are you that unprepared? This is exactly what they did last year. Chris did the same thing. Much rather listen to Paul Keels and Jim Lachey. They are great. Yes, Chris, IGB had 10 tackles. He was amazing. Caleb coaching Sanchez. Caleb is such a leader. He really is. We've crowned Jeremiah the number 1 player in the country. I'll tell you, Caleb is making an argument. He really is. He's making an argument. It is always fun to have that argument. Underrated point here, Shane. The whole team played so clean with just 2 penalties. Can we talk about one of those penalties, right? Offsetting penalties. When you are getting hands to your face, how are you then called for a holding and that's offensive penalties or offsetting penalties? Like, I understand, okay, this is a rule. I've never heard this rule said, but you're getting hands to your face. That should be it. That's the penalty. Now you're going to get called for holding after that. That's absurd. That's an absurd rule. That needs to change. Ed, I saw why yours was still starting last year. People were saying, what happens if Arch comes out and plays really good against Ohio State? Everybody's going to question Sark. Like, why didn't you start yours last year? And it's interesting now we're going the other way. Obviously, people ripped yours a lot last year. Arch comes in against 2 cream puffs, plays pretty damn good, looks really damn good, and people questioning all year, why isn't Sark putting him in? And obviously he knew, man. Guy was going to play for a national championship. He was in the playoffs. He's not going to play the guy that's not as good out of loyalty or money or any other reason. He's trying to win a national championship. So very clear, just from his decision-making, who was better. Yes, Emily, Eddie Houston. Eddie Houston was pacing in front of Emily. Dude is a brick house. He is so big and yoked, and he sure is. Billy McBride, one of our Duck Eyes, Billy, congrats on the big win yesterday against, who'd you have yesterday? Montana State? You guys look great. Like 66-14 or something. Well played, buddy. I'm with Brad here. Brad thinks this game was less of an indictment on Arch, more of a showcase of the Ohio State defense and defensive play calling. I couldn't agree more. Though a veteran quarterback could have done a little bit better. You know, that was the defense just being totally elite. Cookie Monster, what's up, Cook? Matty P, a major upgrade. Certainly seems like an upgrade so far. I am a big fan of Jim Knowles when it comes to play calling, but they did a lot more. They disguised a lot better. It was really awesome. Chris says Colin Cowherd was calling Julian Sayin, Julian Slayin. He does need a nickname, right? I was calling him the babyface assassin. That's a little played out, though. A lot of people have had that nickname. We need something. We do need something. You know what else I can't stand about being in a live game is when you happen to be sitting next to a couple of folks who think they're the football coach. I had one of those yesterday, right behind my left shoulder, and boy, was he obnoxious, man. And everything he was saying was wrong. It was so bad. Studley Budley, finally I catch a Juck live. Nice to meet you, my friend. Thanks for joining me. That's why I like to pop on at random times, right? Maybe you would have liked to catch it live before, you never could. So happy you could join me. And yes, I agree. Arvell, he's awesome. He is awesome. AA. Yeah, A8. That's it, Emily. That is the official Juck Eyes nickname for Arvell. It's A8. That's the name of my car. It just fits perfectly. Woody's. I like how the narrative on Matt Patricia went from he rode Bill Belichick's coattails to multiple Super Bowls to he's an upgrade over crotchety Knowles. It's true. The narrative did change for a lot of people. Not for me. I was always very high on the higher. Mike Schaefer says ESPN FPI rankings, Texas number 1, Georgia number 2, Ohio State number 3. What are they smoking? Those aren't updated, right, Mike? Like that's before the game. Posh says, go Bucks. We are number 1. Terry, trestle ball, baby. It did look a lot like trestle ball. Noel, the guy of the Buckeyes, said, I saw you, Juck, but I wasn't loud enough. You probably didn't hear me. No, I didn't hear you. You saw me at the game and you hollered out and I missed you? Man, that sucks. I would have loved to have said hello. Chris Lane, thank you so much, buddy. Just because, as always, appreciate the super chat. You are the best, my friend. You are the best. Cal says, Arch seems like a nice kid, but he took all the money and was in 4 commercials. So it's business now. So you can't have it both ways. This is a fair point. There was a point in time where he was totally not doing any media. He didn't want to be in the game. He didn't want to be doing any of this. But now that when you put yourself in the commercials, in the limelight, and let's be honest, these guys are all making money. They're professionals now. The criticism's fair. But when you get his kind of media attention, the blowback is a little unfair. It's just a little unfair. That's all. But no, man, these guys are all fair game to criticize. They're all playing big boy college football, and they're all making a lot of money at the top, right? You look at Ethan Anyanwa, guy's making close to $1 million this year to be the starting left tackle out of the transfer portal, and he's playing 15 not very good snaps at guard. So that's fair game to criticize. Anybody who thinks it's not is just somebody who doesn't like to hear bad news or something. He wasn't good yesterday. I'm bringing that up because I put that on Twitter along with 20 comments about how good everything was, right? One negative thing and people come at your neck, man. And those people drive me nuts. Not everything's perfect all the time. And they just can't handle it. Yes, good point. Remember when you compared Julian and Arch's stats that Julian had 3 drops, uncharacteristic drops, and Julian did look very poised for a first-time starter. I'm with you, Mega Max. So the comments that Day made about Julian to me are a really good sign for how scary this offense and the team will be in the playoffs once they come and they open up the playbook. CJ Stroud, like 100%. He's really smooth, man. Really, really smooth. What number was Simmons? Never saw him, and I had excellent seats. I don't know. Did he play? Are we sure he played? Oh, Mama Sanchez in the house. Hey, Junior played great for first game. McLean is so good. Give McLean number 2 next season if he stays on this track. I'm with you, man. Kid is a stud. Absolute stud. Oh, we're talking about the song? Yeah, so the song didn't go over well in the stadium. It did not go over well. I'll tell you what did, though. There was a lot more music played than usual, and it went over great. The band now has microphones, and it's coming through the speakers no matter where you're at. Sounds like the band's right next to you. I thought that was a great part of the atmosphere. We got the free towels yesterday. Nobody, like, there wasn't a moment where let's say, for instance, at a moment where you would have the fourth and goal stand, like that's the moment where those towels should have been going crazy. Probably should have put that on the board and let everybody know. But we're not a towel waving crowd. Like we don't do that. So we're not hip to the thing. Good thing they put instructions on the towel. There are instructions on the towel. It says, grab it by the corner, pick it up and wave it in the air, bring it back next game. 3 instructions. If you can follow those, you'll be all right. We'll get the handle of it if it, people keep bringing them back or purchase them at the game. Maybe we'll be a towel waving society. I don't know, but it didn't go great. And the song, I played it on yesterday's video. They played the song. The only lyrics they put up were "Ohio, treat me well," like during the refrain. I don't think anybody in the stadium knew that they were supposed to be singing around or singing along, because let's be honest, you and me, the people who keep up on this stuff, like in the off season, which is when that was released, a press conference from the AD, we're a small percentage, right? We're a small percentage of the fan base. There's a lot of people who had no clue what that song was, that it was supposed to be the anthem, or even knew that the victory bell was going to be rung at the beginning. They don't know any of this stuff. They're just finding it when they get to the game. The thing is, you've got 6 or 7 home games a year with a rotating crowd, which means how many games does it take before people start catching on? They're supposed to be singing that song. If you don't walk them through it and let them know at the stadium, we're going to be singing this song together. Here's the lyrics. Nobody was singing. I took a video. Everybody was kind of looking at it. It looked like an advertisement for Ohio. They were playing things in the background. It wasn't a hit. It wasn't a hit. I'll tell you what, though, the song's kind of growing on me the more I hear it. I'll be honest. Oh, geez. D said, it's crazy. Devin gave up a catch and is getting more flack than all the other catches. Crazy work. Yeah. Yeah. Corners give up catches, man. I don't know what people expect. Jermaine gave up a catch yesterday, and the coverage was fantastic. What are you going to do? Sometimes the guy makes a play. Game number 1, bound to happen. Yeah, Max Clare definitely underperformed. He's not used to ball. I mean, look, he's coming from Purdue, right? He's used to having to make great catches. So when it hits him right in the hands, he was like, what do I do here? He drops the ball. He'll get better. We know that. We do know that. All right, friends. I really appreciate you joining me. I think that tomorrow's show on Juck on Bucks might be with me and a guest. And then, of course, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we'll be live again for Buckeye Huddle Prime Time over on the Buckeye Huddle channel. Please like today's video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Just hit 18,000 subscribers. Appreciate all of you. I hope to get to that 20,000 by the end of the year. That would be a really awesome milestone before we reach 2 years of the show. So if you haven't subscribed yet, if you could, that would be fantastic. And I appreciate you guys so much. As always, been very fun hanging out with you for an hour on Victory Sunday. Let's do it again soon. Talk to you guys later. Juck and Bucks out. Hey, it's Juck.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
Start